Hi, welcome to my recording for Microsoft VirtualHub. In this recording, I will show you how I managed to use tools not only from Office 365 but as well from Azure to create a workflow, to create a process that helps me to manage my invoices process inside my company. And well, it really helps me a lot because it saves me as well a lot of work, because previously I had to do all these things manually. And after I've created this workflow and the process is up and running, it actually nearly does anything that I had to do in the first place for me. So let me show you how it works in just a while. My name is Tomasz. I am Business Applications MVP, and well, I'm also an expert in Office 365 solutions, mainly an expert around the processes, the business applications, so the solutions you can build on top of Power Platform, and with small help from Azure services as well. So if you have any questions to me, not only in regards to what you will watch today, but also around the Power Platform, around the Power Automate, the Power Apps, then simply type in the browser aka.ms/poshetek, and you'll land on a web page where you can find all the hyperlinks to all the social media channels that I'm present on, and then you can just choose which channel you'd like to choose for contacting me. So don't hesitate. I will really gladly help you in any questions that you're gonna have. All right, so what is the reason that I built this solution? So imagine that over the months, even over the years actually, every month I was receiving quite a number of invoices, and usually they were coming from the same vendors. But this is not all. I've been doing a lot of company shoppings and other purchases, and for most of them I was also receiving some kind of invoices, or for flights, the itinerary, the taxi billings, these documents were those cost documents that in the end had to be passed over to my accountant. And then before I built a solution, I was always receiving these emails. I had to flag them. I had to write down some more information that I need to pay that invoice, for example, because it is not already paid. What is the due date? And then in the end, I had to send that attachment, that document over to the accountancy. And so I was thinking actually about a solution that could help me, that maybe could do this automatically. So like recognize if an email contains an invoice or maybe it doesn't contain an invoice. And then if it does contain an invoice, then maybe it could try to OCR some information from that document, and then finally register the information somewhere so that I can then better trace what I have to pay and what I have already paid. And also that it could just send these documents over to the accountancy without actually any interference, any activity from my side, and only in case that it is not 100% sure whether this is actually an invoice or not, then maybe to ask me so that I can step into the process and manually justify whether this document is or is not that document that should be passed over to the accountancy. So because I had already some of the knowledge and experience with Louise, I thought that I'll just try to utilize this service into my workflow. So in the end, my working solution is using Power Automate, is using Louise, and is using AI Builder to, well, achieve what I actually wanted to achieve. So how is it built? First, once a new email arrives in my inbox, the Power Automate is being triggered, and it checks if that email contains an attachment, whether it's a PDF attachment or an image attachment. Now, if it doesn't, the process is over. Easy peasy. Now, if it does contain an attachment, then the workflow is then taking the body of the email, is stripping out all the HTML tags, and then is also doing some truncation on that text, because if the text is too long and is being sent over to Louise, then Louise was very likely to fail. So I set like a threshold that not more than 250 first characters are going to be sent to Louise. So anyway, if the email contains an the attachment, then the Power Automate is removing the HTML, concatenating the body with the title, cutting off after 250 characters, and this string is being sent to Luis. Now, Luis, based on the intents it already have and the train model, is trying to calculate the confidence. So how similar this string is to others already known, and how similar is to the intent that is called the invoices. If this confidence is very high, so above 90%, then what Luis is doing was simply then sending this image, this attachment, to the AI Builder model. Now the AI Builder was trained, and is trained to recognize, I think, like 7 vendors. Then based on the vendor, the different model is being picked up, and this model is being used to recognize data on the invoice. After data is recognized or not, then the file is stored to the OneDrive, and then finally also the record is being saved to an Excel file with information: when should I pay this invoice, what is the issue date, what is the number, what is the VAT number, like all the details about the invoice, if they were recognized by the AI model, of course. And finally, like this is the second finally, this document is sent to my accountancy, and then the process ends. Now, in case this is this moderate confidence, so if this confidence is between like 70 and 90%, then what Power Automate is doing is assigning me a task. In the task, it is asking me if this email contains an invoice. Now, if I say yes, it does contain an invoice, then what Power Automate is doing is actually taking these contents that were used to ask Luis in the first place, and is calling the Luis endpoints via the HTTP request to first create a new intent, a new utterance in the existing intent, and then is training this model. So if there is another email having the same content or similar content sent with an invoice, then most probably the next time Luis will return the higher confidence, like the confidence above 90%, because it already knows this that content and is trained to recognize it. But in case it is rejected, then, well, what is not present here, the workflow is also sending these contents to Luis, however, to another intent, to the one that is called none. So let's call it trash. This is the one that is used to store all these emails, bodies, and email contents from the messages that were having a higher confidence, but were actually not containing any kind of invoice-related documents. And so for the future, if I do receive something similar, I would like Luis to say this is the non-intent. So then I will know that this is actually the trash, and this confidence for the invoices is really low. So again, I will be able to simply cancel or terminate the workflow. And then in the last case, so if this is low confidence, so below the 70%, then the workflow simply ends and, well, does nothing else. All right, so let me show you how this actually works. So this is the John Researchers, my employee inbox. And now John is going to write me an email. Sorry, there are just some small mistakes. I'll attach a file, right? So this is the invoice that, well, has been saved and sent already. So I'll just edit it once again. Okay, so now once this is sent, I will receive this email, and you'll see what happens. So this is the email that has been just sent and received. And you can see that it already has this flag set up. So once the email arrives in my inbox, it is without any flag. But because the Power Automate has already recognized it as an email with an invoice, therefore it is flagged, so the reminder is set. Also, when I go into send items, I can see that this email to my accountant has also been sent. However, because I do not have a trained model for this kind of an invoice layout, therefore all the information around like purchase date, issue date, issuer, VAT number, and so on, are set as not recognized because the AL bidder is not able to recognize it. So what actually happened here? Let me just show you step by step. Cool. Now, as said, first the workflow is triggered if the new email arrives. Then there is this check if email contains an image or a PDF file. Next, what the workflow is doing is actually extracting the body contents of the email and is converting them to plain text. So from this content, we are getting just a plain text message. Now then there is a check to validate if this string is really long, if it's over like 250 characters. If it would be, then it will be truncated. Because if it's not, well, yes, the label and the condition presents something different, but yeah, trust me that this is the case that the body is not longer than 250 characters. So in this case, there is the variable set that actually concatenates together the title and and the body, and then it is sending this to Luis for the recognition. Now what Luis is doing, oh, and one more thing is that I'm sending that the desired intent to check against these contents is invoices. And that's why in the return, Luis is saying that yes, this is the desired intent, so it is matching the desired intent. The top scoring intent name is invoices, obviously. Plus, I also have information what was this confidence per each intent. So for invoices, the confidence was like 98%. For the non-intent, it was only 15%. So just by having this information, I'm already sure that this is an email, or I should be sure that this is an invoice, that is an email containing an invoice. Other thing that is also being returned by this Luis action are the entities found within the text. So the Luis here in my example is not only trying to match the new text to existing utterances, but is also trying to extract the entities. And then also based on these entities, I could be able to add additional condition checking what is the confidence around this recognition, or maybe to use those entities in my email for like further processing. Nevertheless, it found a couple of entities within the text. So it found the entity invoice. It found the invoice that is a child of the factory, which is in Polish invoice as well. There should be as well, but it didn't find the purchase. Well, nevertheless, it was also able to match. Those entities. So then, what is happening next is that if this prediction value, if this confidence is above 90%, which was, then it's simply sending me a mobile notification, flagging the email as you saw, and then for each attachment found in this email, it is simply storing this in the OneDrive under the folder that's URL is starting from year/month. So that documents for each year and for each month are being stored in a single folder. So then it is also easier for me to find the document that I'm looking for. Next, what is happening is the child flow being triggered. That is actually calling the AL builder model to process the invoice. And if it is done successfully, if this processing of the AL builder model is completed, then what is happening is this creation of the new entry inside the Excel file, which is this kind of CRM for me. So I have there the list of all invoices, all the due dates, all the information that I really need to somehow track what I need to pay and what not. And finally, an email with all the information I was recognized is being sent to my accountancy together with the document. So this is where the process ends. However, if we were in a different scenario, so if the email that was sent was not actually making the Luis to generate this prediction over 90%, and look what is happening for this case. So if the prediction was lower than 90%, then there was additional check if this prediction is over 70%. Now, if it is over 70%, so there is this slight possibility that it's still an email that contains an invoice, but well, its body is just not matching any known intent, any known entrance, and intent as well. Then what the workflow is doing is simply assigning me this task with request to either approve or reject what kind of document it is. I also added this option as not applicable because sometimes I do receive emails that do have attachments but have like nothing to do with invoices at all. And in that case, I simply just want to abandon the whole process without any further processing, without any further logic. So just, it has nothing to do with this process. So now once I approve it, then what I said already is that the Power Automate is calling two endpoints. So first is adding its utterance to an intent, and then it's training the application so that the next time a similar email appears or arrives in my inbox, then Luis should be able to generate this confidence over 90%. Now, in case I said rejected, so this might have been an email with a cost document with an invoice, but for some reason it's just not relevant to me, and I don't want to process it, not even this time and not in the future. Then that utterance is also added, but to this non-intent, so to this like trash intent. So then the next time an email with a similar body arrives, then the Power Automate and the Luis will be will say that I have a high match, but with the non-intent. So that will also mean that this is not an email with an invoice that should be processed and sent, for example, to the accountancy. Now, if I say approve, then the application, the workflow is not terminating, so it's just moving on and doing the same steps as it used to be. Now, what is happening inside this child flow? So what child flow is doing is actually, it does have this switch. So for each known vendor, I have just a separate model. And then in each of those models, if it matches the sender email, then Power Automate is actually calling this prediction action. So trying to use existing model against the document. And then in the end is returning this JSON. Let me just show you how it works in the edit mode because you can't see anything in here. So it is sending this document to AI Builder to recognize the data. And then once this processing is done, then information recognized by the model are simply saved as a JSON and finally are being returned as separate variables back to the parent flow. Okay, so this is the action, right? Okay. Now the next thing I wanted to show you is actually the model. So when if you'd like to create something similar in your solution, and what you have to do is you need to navigate to AI Builder in Power Automate or in Power Apps, up to you, and then build a model. The model I am using here is called the form processing. So let me show you this, for example, model. So this is the one used for the invoices from the taxi company. So what is being recognized on this document is the information about the issuer, the VAT number, the total value, invoice number, transaction date, and issue date. So let me just do a quick test. I'll drag and drop a document. And so right now it is being analyzed. And once this processing is done, you will realize that some of the fields, some of the information of the invoice are simply being highlighted, like surrounded with the borders, like here, right? So this is the invoice number, confidence is like 19%. This is the starting period. This is the issuer name, that's the VAT number, that's the issue date, and also there is this total value. So these are the information that the model was able to recognize on the document. Now the point is that today we need to actually create a separate model per each layout of the document we want to process, we want to recognize. There is on the roadmap functionality that will help us to create one single model that will just like gather all other models underneath. So like you'll be able to create well, you will still need to create a separate model per each layout, but then you will be having like a single model called invoices that you will need to call from the Power Automate. So in the end, I will not need to actually have this switch, so that for each vendor, I'll need to create the separate branch, but I will simply call this one grouped or combined model that will then take the input information and on its own will actually pick the right model for the right content. So that would be much faster for me to create and then as well to develop this workflow, because now for each vendor I'd like to add, I actually need to add this new branch and then configure it and so on. Once this roadmap thingy is completed, what I will only have to do is to create a new model and train it. Okay, so that about the AI Builder. Alright, so now let me jump over to the LUIS. So first, LUIS intents. Oh, just one small remark. LUIS is nothing you can actually create within Power Platform. It's not a part of the Power Platform. It is a part of the cognitive services that you can purchase and use right from the Azure. Now, the LUIS itself, it has a free tier, so you can create this app using the free tier. I recall that the free tier actually allows you to make like thousands of calls per each month. So if you don't actually need anything beyond that number, then you'll be covered under this free license and this free tier. So that is not actually something significant that will be the costs for your solution. However, if you have really thousands of those processes, of those processing information per each month, then possibly you will need to add your credit card and then simply pay these costs. Anyway, in my LUIS, I have two intents created. So the first one are the invoices. The second one is this none. The first one is all these utterances that have been first added by me on my own, because I had to train this model. And also they're added by the Power Automate in terms I say, I approve this document actually contains invoice. And then in each of these utterances, there is also information about the entities found within. So usually there are information around the invoice, in Polish, in English, also some in German. And based on these entities, also this confidence is calculated sometimes higher, sometimes lower. So the other thing are the entities. Now I have just one group of the entities. It's called the invoices keywords. So then anything that is found within the utterance that is being sent to LUIS for the recognition, for the analyze, then also it is trying to find some of these, every, none, whatever entity, and also these entities that are found, that are recognized, are being sent back to the Power Automate along with the information. So once you start playing with LUIS, first you need to create actually the service, and then once you create your LUIS instance, then you have to create the intent and then to train the intent with the information that in the future you'd like to use as the one that actually helps you to recognize your patterns. So like, for example, if I now take these contents that I sent, right? So this is the content, and I go back to LUIS and I say test. So now I type in or paste in here the contents of the email that John sent to me. Okay. Then what I got in return is that what the LUIS was able to recognize with like 97% that this string matches the invoices intent, and also the information here is that it found some of the entities. So this was also the information that was returned to Power Automate, right? So nothing really more than actually the action is giving back to the Power Automate. So having that said, I would like to actually encourage you to ask me questions. So if after watching this video, you have any doubts, you have any questions, you have any requests to explain something deeper, something maybe less technically, more from the business side, or if you'd like to learn more about some particular steps I took to create this solution, then don't hesitate. Contact me via email, contact me via Twitter. You can as well, as said in the beginning, go to aka.ms/poshetech to find all these hyperlinks in a single place. So I hope that this video as well inspired you, that you can actually create very intelligent processes using Power Automate, using the Power Platform. But then when you look beyond the Power Platform, when you look, for example, at those Azure services, then there is also quite a significant number of these that you can utilize in your workflows, usually under the free tiers. And these can really help you to make your processes even more intelligent. So, well, as said, I hope that it inspired you, and now you will also rethink maybe some of the processes you already have, or maybe that you're thinking of to create. So how to incorporate some artificial intelligence into them to make them more efficient, to make them work seamlessly and without your interaction. Thank you very much for watching, and I encourage you to watch even more videos on VirtualHub. There is a lot of content, there is a lot of information, very, very valuable. So just browse the VirtualHub, and I hope that I'll be invited to record something more in the future. Once again, thank you very much.